And I guess as gift-giving time comes along, thinking about what you're spending and what you have in your pocket to spend is important. So we always start the beginning of our show talking about investing for our future and retirement, so we don't get gray hair because we're worried about our money. And to do that, we have Darren Farwell of the Farwell Group. So good morning, Darren.
Good morning, Marilyn. And of course, one of the best ways to not worry about your money is to have a plan. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Last week, when I was on the show, I mentioned some somewhat surprising research. Most people I mentioned this to are, and when I first saw it, was a little bit surprised. Women who lose a spouse can experience a drop of income of up to 40% within 5 years of the death of their spouse. With that information, I thought I would challenge listeners and ask kind of a scary question. And I did last week. Are you prepared to lose up to 40% of your income? And, because this kind of research and these kind of statistics are just numbers, I thought I would add to that a real life story. And the real life story last week was about Nancy. And Nancy and her husband, Tony. Now, Tony, when I got to meet Nancy, Tony had been dead for about 4 years. And with his loss, Nancy was no longer receiving his Canada pension plan. She was no longer receiving into the household his old age security. As it turns out, in his defined benefit plan, other defined benefit plans have some survivor benefit. In his plan, there was not, so she was not receiving any of his defined benefit. Her new single woman tax rate was significantly higher than her tax rate as a couple because she didn't have some of the income splitting provisions available. So she lost her own old age security supplement. So Nancy's income was in fact down significantly. And what started to happen is Nancy was regularly withdrawing significant chunks of capital from her savings just to get by. She would notice there was a gap in what she was spending versus the money that was coming in. So she would take money out of her savings in order to fill that gap. And then all of a sudden she started to worry about running out of money, not having enough to fund her long-term care if she ever needed it. And then there was the hope that she was going to be able to leave some money to her children, and she was wondering if that was in jeopardy. So actually, Nancy started to sort of lose sleep worrying about this. The good news is, not all sad story, the very good news is that after some careful planning and rejigging of what her investments are earning, what type of income she was earning, and which accounts to effectively draw her income from first, we were able to plug the gap. Nancy was definitely able to offset the income she was losing from her savings, and she was able to do it tax effectively. But there was this whole period where she was quite nervous and losing sleep first, and that isn't necessarily the way you want things to happen. So Nancy's going to be fine, and most importantly, today she feels confident in that knowledge. All's well that ends well. But is there a lesson here? Well, of course, there is. I promise to suggest a strategy that might have reduced, well, even alleviated Nancy's worry. And it involves planning. The strategy is twofold. Number one, while married and both alive, Tony and Nancy had run a retirement plan. However, they might have taken an extra step. They might have run a retirement plan scenario where one of them or each of them died earlier than the regular life expectancy scenario. Most financial plans run with a life expectancy of age 90 these days because people are living longer, even age 95. So it would be interesting to run a scenario where one of the spouses actually dies much earlier and see what happens as a result of that new scenario. If they had done that, what Nancy would have been able to see is there was going to be an income gap. She could have seen of that ahead of time, and that means it wouldn't be such a big surprise. They could have planned for it as a plan B, just in case. Now, in their planning with their total wealth advisor, which, as you know, we always recommend people work with a professional, they could have discussed what to do about the gap ahead of time, because research has proven just having the conversation about what to do before it happens reduces stress. Now, given a total wealth advisor, such as Leslie and I, deal with the big picture of all aspects of your financial health, something else might have happened. we might have suggested that early in retirement, Tony might not have just canceled his term insurance policy. Term insurance gets very expensive as you get older. So as a knee-jerk reaction, as people get older, when their term insurance comes up and they see the size of the premiums going forward, they'll just cancel it. However, there are options. You can repurpose that insurance into more of a permanent type insurance, and you can do that without a medical. That's a great sometimes, and that's a great advantage. So if they had repurposed, for example, Tony's term insurance into a different type of insurance, when he did in fact pass on, there would have been a significant lump sum available to Nancy, and she could have used that money to fill the gap that she was seeing. So the lesson is, as it usually is when we talk on Saturday mornings, the best plan is to have a plan. But number one, from this, what we learned from Tony and Nancy is don't, as your term insurance comes up in retirement, don't just do the knee-jerk thing of saying, oh, we can save the premium, let's cancel it. Make a decision within the context of your long-term planning and decide whether it's actually the best idea to cancel it or whether you should keep it. And in today's world, always important to run not just your retirement plan, but some alternative scenarios so you can be prepared for whatever comes your way.
Well, I've made notes, Darren, and I guess you don't need a magic globe to look at to foresee the future. You basically have said that if we do a what-if plan, what if I die, what if my spouse dies, what if we get ill, what if we live longer than we expect, if you run those scenarios, which you do at the Farwell Group, you can come up with a plan so that you don't have to bite your fingernails and not sleep at night.
Yeah, you can be prepared for what comes.
So if someone wants to talk to you about this and exactly that, running those scenarios, figuring out what to do before they take action, or maybe to change what is already in place, how do we reach you?
You can call me at 416-863-7501 or go to our website, the Farwell Group.
So 416-863-7501. or the Farwell Group, and also my website, marylands.ca, sponsor experts, and there you are with the link for Darren. It is possible to sleep at night and not to have worry as long as you've made a plan. And any plan is better than no plan. I've learned that from Darren, and I think that finding out about it is the first step. Then you know whether you have to stand still, move back a little to go forward, or what steps to take. So take the number down, 416-863-7501. There's valuable literature available as well. So have the conversation and find out what's right for you. Thank you, Darren.